Journey, the exciting television series that brings you each week the actual films of colorful adventures in all parts of the world, the golden journeys of real people.
Thank you very much, and good evening, adventure fans. Our episode tonight is a fine one. I traded my gun for a camera, and our guest is Mr. George Wurzburger, skilled hunter of big game, but with a conscience. At the height of his fame, having hunted all over the world, something happened inside which completely changed Mr. Wurzburger's ambitions about wild animals. We're going to see films of his hunting adventures, and then the amazing change that made him turn in his rifle for something quite different. We start after this brief message. Not everyone can be a hunter. Some of us haven't the time, some haven't the ability, some haven't the desire. Tonight's guest, Mr. George Wurzburger, had all three, and yet he gave up his expensive guns and devoted himself to photographing wildlife. He literally traded his gun for a camera. And after we see his films, we're going to ask him the big question. Why did he do it? How did he do it? And we'll also ask him to show us some unique and unusual trophies of his big game hunting days. Right now, let's meet our guest, Mr. George Wurzburger. How are you,
Jack,
sir? It's nice to see you. Mr. Wurzburger, how long were you a big game hunter?
Oh, Jack, I started hunting when I was very young, and I imagine I've been a hunter for about 40 years.
You evaded that a little bit, Mr. Wurzburger, but we're going to forgive you, sir. Now, in what jungle areas or what hunting areas of the world, the hunting arenas, have you gone after big game? Africa, no doubt.
Yes, Jack, Africa a number of times. I've hunted all through Mexico, North America, British Columbia, and I've done quite a bit of shooting in Europe, too.
And yet you traded your gun for a camera. I'm not going to let you say any more because I don't want you to give it away, and I promise I'm not going to give anything away until after we've seen this very fine film of yours. Here, ladies and gentlemen, is the film story of a man who traded his gun for a camera. Mr. Wurzburger hunted all over the world, chiefly in Africa, but our film begins at his home in America.
Jack, I used to be very proud of my gun collection, and here are some of them that I used when I was a hunter. Of course, as you know, I don't use them anymore today, but look at this fine German shotgun. It is a 12 gauge and highly engraved, and it is one of the finest guns that I've ever owned. I took it with me to Austria to hunt the capercailzie, the only game bird which is rated as a big game animal. Here you see me with my guide, and it's quite a stalk to get to these birds. You do it in the high timber and in the mountainous country, and here you see one of the birds that I got on this trip. Look at the size of him. This is my 30-06, a very wonderful all-around rifle used so much in the United States for hunting the big game animals that we have here.
It looks like a very powerful weapon.
It is, Jack. It is indeed a fine weapon, and I've used it in Africa on the medium-sized game like this topee antelope you see here, or this cheetah, which is the fastest animal on 4 legs. It has been clocked as much as 70 miles an hour, Jack. Or this magnificent zebra stallion, which we usually use for camp meat because the boys like it very much. This Peter's gazelle is the best one that has ever been taken. This is the wildebeest, or better known as the gnu, which I collected in Kenya on one of the dry lakes. And then we come back to the United States. This same rifle, the 30-06, is very popular with deer hunters, and I've used it many, many times. There's a magnificent mule deer, which was taken over in Utah, a spread of approximately 36 inches.
You are quite a hunter. I can observe that very quickly, Mr. Wurzburger.
Jack, this is an African lion skull. Look at those fangs.
Oh, they're kind of frightening to me.
Yes,
I suppose they wouldn't be to
they're
you
really
hunters.
frightening.
Uh-huh.
Here, Jack, now we have the biggest of all rifles, which I use, the 375 Magnum. This is the gun that is used on such animals as the rhinoceros, the buffalo, and elephants. Look at the difference between that 22 cartridge and the 375. This splendid bull elephant was taken with this very same rifle in Kenya. This rhinoceros, which charged and had to be stopped, was also killed with this gun. This is the Cape buffalo, renowned to be the most dangerous of all African game. And here we see another rhino.
That's an awful big animal.
Yes, those African elephants are really tremendous, Jack. You can't realize how big they are until I show you something like this foot. Look at my fist and then look at those toenails. And look at the circumference. You could almost step into that yourself. There, Jack, is that 375 cartridge. But let's get away from that, Jack. Let's go on one of these trips that I used to take together. Here we're starting out from my home. We had heard that there was a mountain lion doing a lot of damage up in Wyoming. And so with my hunting partner, we're getting to start up there, see whether we could get this lion.
A cougar, you say? Mountain lion?
The cougar, the American lion, yes, Jack. And so we drive through beautiful country and we see lakes and streams, and there's a lot of timber up there.
Now, what section of the country are we in, Mr. Wurzburger?
This is Wyoming, Jack.
I see.
In fact, it's the little town of Pinedale, which is just a small town lying along this little stream. And it's typical a Wild West country where you still see the old-time cowboys. The cattle raising is the main source of income that these people who live in this area have. So we stopped at this little gun and ammunition store to find out just where we should look for this cougar. And he sent us out into the desert where we found a sheep herder who had made camp, and we got some more information from him, Jack. Lots of life up there. Ducks on the ponds, and geese are flying.
Seems to me to be a hunter's paradise out there.
It is, Jack. It's way far in, and you spend a lot of time looking through your field glasses. Now we've spotted some antelope. The pronghorn antelope is the only member of the antelope family found on the North American continent, and they're a magnificent animal. They are very fleet, they have keen eyesight, and they live out on the plains, Jack, where it is very difficult to approach them. Incidentally, look at those horns. They're very interesting. There are only two animals in the world that use highly specialized hair for their defensive armament: the African rhinoceros and our American pronghorn antelope. Jack, they also have the ability of signaling to their friends. Those white hair you see on the rump of their tails, they can raise those and they can flash a signal which warns other antelope.
But now, you really weren't after antelope, were you? You were after a cougar.
That's right, Jack. We were after this cougar who comes down from the high country on the plains and preys on the antelope. Unfortunately, we didn't find the cougar in this country, Jack, so we had to leave this country and go south into Utah, where we had heard that there were other cougars doing a lot of damage on the herds of deer that they have in these mountains.
Must be cold out there. You could just see that steam pouring out.
That's right, Jack. It was really cold. And along the campsite which we'd selected, we found these sage grouse, which are magnificent big birds. And Jack, you probably know that the only way that you can catch these cougar is to have a highly trained pack of hound dogs who run by scent and follow the line until you finally tree them. Making camp is a lot of work, but it has to be done. It's the first thing you must do in getting ready for one of these hunts. The cougar is found in the toughest, roughest country of our West, and his main prey in this part of the country are the deer. A grown cougar will kill approximately 2 deer a week. Jack, they also eat porcupine.
Did you say they killed 2 antelope a week?
They kill 2 deer a week, Jack.
Huh?
So you can see if you can eliminate one cougar, you really help preserve and save the deer herds.
And the porcupine that we just saw there. Well, now what's happening here?
Well, Jack, these are just scenes around our camp. The horses have to be fed, and incidentally, these western mountain horses are really wonderful animals. They'll take you over trails and through mountains that you would hardly dare walk on foot, but they're very sure-footed. Here we see our dogs. Of course, they have to be fed too. These, Jack, are cougar dogs. This fellow's been running so hard that the pads of his feet are sore, so he's licking them.
Oh, the poor fella.
And here's old Badger. Look how his ears have been torn in fights that he's had with cougar.
Well, he lived to tell a story, though, didn't he?
Yes, that dog has been in on many, many hunts and treeing mountain lions, Jack. So we're talking over what we're going to do the next day, and now, Jack, we'll really start out on our hunt. We're bringing the horses on up to where we start, and just along the road we spotted this magnificent bunch of deer. Some of them crossed a little stream that was there, and going was really rough. The deer just went ahead of us. We just followed them. One of the dogs got into this stream, Jack, and was almost swept away. It was so fast. And then we came across a deer kill. Here's what the mountain lion leaves after he downs one of these beautiful animals. Jack, I wanted to get ahead to photograph the hunters coming, and I really had some luck because I ran into this cougar long before he was aware that the dogs were on his trail, and got these close-up pictures of him.
Now, he seemed to be stalking that little deer out there. Was that so?
No, Jack, he was not stalking the deer. He knew that something was wrong, but he couldn't quite make out what was going on.
Now we return to I Traded My Gun for a Camera, Mr. George Wurzburger.
Finally, when the dogs caught up, he got into this tree. He was treed, Jack. I'm not proud of this shot. Any baby could have made it, Jack, but as I told you, every time a mountain lion is downed, you save at least 2 deer a week. And here we have him. Look at those powerful muscles in his chest and in his forepaws. And here you see the skin after we brought it into camp. This is the skin, Jack, and I have it now at home hanging in my den. Now, Jack, here's the kind of photography that made me change my mind about guns.
And it's beautiful photography, too.
Here's this magnificent American eagle photographed by my neighbor, Ed Harrison. It took Ed much more time and skill to photograph this eagle and its young than if he had shot it with a gun. Ed Harrison made a career in wildlife photography. A wild pelican here goes out to get fish to feed its chick. It's interesting, Jack, but with all the youngsters there, the mother always finds its chick. And here, the greedy little pelican is really going after it.
I wasn't aware that they fed this way. Look at that little fella. He just goes right into the mother's mouth, doesn't he, to prod the food out.
Yes, Jack, he puts his head right in her pouch and gets all that there's in it. In fact, this fellow's so greedy, he got his head stuck in there. Still after it. Look at him go. Finally, he gets out, and he's a little bit groggy, Jack, because he probably lacked oxygen while he was in that pouch after food. Now, some films from a friend, Warren Miller, who also takes marvelous pictures. Here at the beach, everyone is having a fine time body surfing. The waves were just right. Look at them come in on their surfboards. A friend of Miller's brought out some of the body surfing ducks that he had trained since the time they were eggs. Look at those ducks go, Jack. They're really having fun.
coaster ride to the shore.
How much nicer to bag a photographic shot of a nice little animal to run over and over for your friends and send the animal on his merry way.
I certainly agree, Mr. Wurzburger. I can't help but think how much more difficult it would be to get unusual films of animals like you're showing us now.
And now, Jack, you see me as I'm today. I've given up my guns for my camera. Of course, being a hunter, I had to devise a gun stock, which I made myself to mount my camera on. It's a very handy device, and with it, I can hold my camera just as steady as a rifle. You see, I can follow birds or running animals, and the only difference is that instead of shooting bullets, I now shoot film.
That's a very commendable way of putting it, too, Mr. Wurzburger. And I think that you're going to start quite a trend with this gun camera of yours.
But now come with me, Jack, to my first assignment of animal photography, to marine land of the Pacific, located on the cliffs of Palo Verde, the largest oceanarium in the world. This is a typical day, Jack, and here we see some of the seals that they have down there. This is the train of the seals. Jack, incidentally, this seal was the one that Walt Disney used in his 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Seals are probably the best of all animal actors. They love to perform. Of course, a little bit of food always helps in getting them to do things.
It's a gentle sort of bribe, isn't it?
It certainly is, Jack. Look at him shaking hands with his trainer.
Where do they rank, Mr. Wurzburger, pardon me, where do they rank in the list of animal intelligence? Do you know?
Yes, I've talked about that and asked Jack. They're next to horses in intelligence. Look at this one stand on his one flipper. And this fellow watching him is applauding him. They're really born actors, aren't they? Look how he balances himself. Jack, while I was there, a very interesting thing happened. 3 thrasher sharks had been caught off the coast by fishermen, and they were delivering them to the aquarium. They were brought in this wooden tank, and on account of the journey that they had out of their environment, why, they had to be revived. And here you see the attendants walking them around so that they can catch their equilibrium.
Well, that's very strange. They absolutely have to do this in order to revive the fish.
They have to get used to it. Look, this one is all ready. He's going. He's all right now. And then, Jack, I moved on over to the large tank where you see all kinds of fish. These rays.
Those are stingrays, aren't they?
Stingrays, and this is a dolphin.
More stingrays.
More stingrays, that's right.
It looks to be a gigantic pool.
It is. It's tremendous, Jack. And here you see the diver going down. This is his daily duty. He goes down several times and hand feeds the large fish so that they will not devour the smaller fellows. There you see the many, many different varieties of fish they have. Stingrays, perch, these giant sea turtles.
And, oh, beautiful, beautiful scene.
This is a sheep's head. This fellow is red and black. And there's a leopard shark, Jack.
Well, now, how do they prevent these big sharks from feeding on the little ones? Oh, I see. They feed all of the fish and keep them so filled, probably, that they don't attack each other. Is
That's
that right?
right, Jack. That is the idea exactly.
I see.
There's a leopard shark again. Here's a grouper. He came over to look at me. I guess he was just as much interested in looking at me as I was in photographing him.
Gee, that turtle is a giant, isn't he?
Yes, those turtles go into tremendous weights, Jack.
You did very, very well, Mr. Wurzburger, on your first photograph.
Yes, but Jack, the best part is still coming. Here we are at the porpoise tank, and these are really amazing animals. They're not fish, Jack, as you probably know. They belong to the whale family, and they breathe air just like any other warm-blooded animal.
They're mammals, aren't they?
They're mammals. That's correct. They have to come up and breathe air just like all land animals. Now, Jack, this is amazing. The attendant will hold a fish in his hand, and these porpoises will jump 12, 15 feet high to get that food.
Like that sailor is doing, for example.
That's right.
Uh-huh. Look at them leap. Ooh.
Isn't that something?
Pow. Belly flopper. Gosh, they're sleek and they're very graceful, aren't they?
Yes, they are, Jack, and they're very, very fast, too, and they're very hungry. They're always hungry because they exert so much energy.
Look at that.
Sometimes they seem to laugh at you. They have such a expression in their faces as though they really enjoyed every moment of it, and I believe they do, Jack.
What's this, baseball?
Well,
soccer?
if you had 9 of these fellas, you could really have a water baseball team. This sailor is playing with this porpoise, and I don't know who's having more fun. Let him throw that. And he's catching it.
They're certainly playful creatures,
Yes,
aren't
they are. They're wonderful animals.
Whoops, boy, that's a Carl Hubble pitch that kid has got.
I really think that the sailor misses the ball more often than the porpoise.
They've got the intelligence to understand what is to be done, you know?
Yes, they're very intelligent animals.
I suppose they just do this by the hour if you let them.
That's right, Jack. They just keep on playing and playing amongst themselves. And now, Jack, you know the reason why I traded my gun for a camera.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wurzburger. Now, right off, let's ask, what in the world is that?
Well, Jack, those are the tail hairs out of 3 elephants, and it's just the way the boys, the gun boys, wrapped it up for me in Kenya. Incidentally, they made this bracelet, which is supposed to be a good luck charm, out of those same hair.
That's just incredible. Let me see this thing. Gosh, they look just like telephone wires.
Yes, they're just like wire.
What made you decide to give up your gun for a camera?
Because, Jack, I found out that after 40-odd years of hunting, it had lost its thrill of going out and collecting animals and then mounting them on my living room wall. And I also found out it takes much more hunting and work to photograph them instead of hunting them with a rifle.
With that camera gun of yours that you have, is that the idea?
Yes, Jack, I couldn't get entirely away from a rifle, so I mounted my camera on a gun stock.
It isn't loaded, is it, huh?
No, it's not, Jack. There's no film in it.
Did you also happen to design the trigger mechanism that sets and stops the camera?
Yes, I did, Jack.
Just a beautiful piece of work, incidentally. Well, what about the future? Now that you've given up your guns and so forth, are you going to stay with the photography of animals, the wildlife photography?
Yes, Jack, indeed I am. I'm studying the maps of the world right now and locating places where I hope to go in the future and photograph the different animals.
What part of the world do you think your wildlife exploring is going to take you to?
Well, I think, Jack, if things work out for me, I'm going to Europe next year and then fly to French Equatorial Africa, a section of Africa that I have not seen and been to, and which promises some terrific animal footage.
We're going to wish you the very best of good luck, and I want to tell you right now just how very much we've enjoyed this marvelous episode of yours. It's one that I think warms the hearts of all people who love nature and the children of nature, which are her animals, of course. I want to thank you again, Mr. George Wurzburger.